Ko tira ngā mihi o te tauhau ki a tātou katoa. Hei whaiwhai haere te āhutango te kōrero i te ahiahi nei, a ka tuku aku poroporo aki ki te hunga kua ngaro ki te tirohanga kanohi, a ko tērā o ngā koia o te waihirere, kua ngaro atu i te tirohanga kanohi nei rā, waiho ia kia moe i te taho o na mātua tūpuna, ka huri mai kia tātou te whare. Huri noa tēnā kūtau, kia ora tātou katoa. Mr. Speaker, there's been a lot of talk today in the House about a very special group of New Zealanders. That's the 60,000 children whom we call the Year One cohort. Children, one might say, on the brink of opportunity, children with the promise of a big, huge future and a world ahead. Mr. Speaker, 1 in 4 of those children will be Māori. That's 15,000 people who have every potential to be entrepreneurs, the innovators, the breadwinners, the talent pool of our labour market. Then let's look at another group, and that's the 800,000 children throughout the school sector. Of these, sir, 160,000 are classified as living in poverty. And I did wonder how it could be that in the Prime Minister's address to the nation today he failed to acknowledge a report that has been widely aired across the nation. That's the United Nations report which described as staggering the rates of child abuse and poverty in Aotearoa. So let's just break that down a bit. Presumably, that's what was implied by the recognition in the speech today that, and I quote, despite decades of good intentions from government, we're still failing too many of our children, end of quote. Mr. Speaker, I have to ask how good those intentions have been for all of our children. So there's two groups, tangata whenua and children living in poverty. But unfortunately, they're both closely linked together. Mr. Speaker, as a teacher and a former principal myself, I can say with some sort of authority that much of the poorer performance and disengagement experience for Māori children is correlated with their socio-economic status. How can any government, red or blue, live with themselves in knowing that the rate of poverty for children in households with no full-time worker is 6 times higher than than it is for children living in homes where there is at least one full-time worker? What that translates into is levels of hardship which have immediate consequences. Mr. Speaker, this is what a group of young New Zealanders described about poverty in the report enabled a fair go for all children. Can't afford school uniform, lack of books, can't go on school trips, no lunch, not accepted by their peers, left out, getting picked up at school, stress, shame, low self-esteem, unhappy, lonely, feeling of worthlessness, etc., etc. Mr. Speaker, we're not talking Charles Dickens here. This is from a 2008 report from the Children's Commissioner, a report which the Labour Party will be forever judged against, a report which should have, but hasn't, become the blueprint for making the national government take bolder action in the interest of our tamariki. Children who are born in homes which have endured long-term poverty, have poorer health and do less well at school. Those same children will achieve lower earnings if indeed they are equipped to leave school without any substantial qualifications. And tragically, childhood poverty is associated with a higher risk of antisocial and criminal behaviour. Mr. Goff alluded to that this afternoon. So, taking the cycle of despair even further, it was pretty depressing to hear the views of my brother-in-law, in fact, by the name of Ruakere Hond, in Taranaki, who's been involved in Māori education since the 1980s. In an article in the Taranaki newspaper, he talked about the fact that a lot of the unemployed Māori lacked motivation from being trapped in, quote, a cyclic paradigm, which filtered down through older members of the whānau. In fact, he described this cycle as becoming culturally ingrained in certain family groups. So, where does this come from? What can we do to address the seemingly intractable problems that lead to underachievement and under-participation? It's not just about poverty of income. It's also about a poverty of spirit demonstrated in schools in which the culture of the school and the attitude and expectations of teachers have been shown to contribute to their disengagement. Mr. Speaker, there is a long-standing recognition that there is a clear disconnect between the majority of teachers and Māori students. We recall two separate surveys, one conducted by the New Zealand History Teachers Association and the other by the academic Richard Manning, which indicated that Māori content was often sidestepped, and this has had major educational and political implications for Māori. And I come back to Mr. Key's view about good intentions. I presume he's talking about the taha Māori programs of the 70s, the various interventions such as the bilingual units in general stream schools, perhaps marae on school grounds, treaty clauses in the charter and the like. I mean, sir, they were all great, but actually benefited Pākehā students more than the target group Māori. But what Russell Bishop of Waikato University has demonstrated so effectively is that recognition of our language, culture and identity is an essential part of the pathway to success for Māori. But the Māori edge is not just about having a Māori name or the school being able to sing Tūtira Mai Ngā Iwi. The Māori edge, sir, is to understand that whānau are the critical factor to ensuring achievement in education. Whānau, hapu and iwi have a special role in making success happen. We call it whanaungatanga, where everyone is involved, where the people that care most about our students, their whānau, are welcomed at the door. It's about allowing Māori to have a space, providing support, but still allowing Māori to have our own say and to take up models that work for us, like Tūtoa and Palmerston North, for example. It's about celebrating Māori innovation and initiative. Mr. Speaker, politicians on both sides of the House have spoken about the importance of literacy and numeracy programs, of our kids being able to speak well, count well, read well and write well. Well, sir, what's new? That's the same catchphrase New Zealanders from all ethnic backgrounds have been calling for since the missionaries arrived with their pencils and slates. But Mr. Speaker, literacy and numeracy on their own is but one part of the solution. If we really want to make a difference for Māori education, we must understand that Māori solutions are required. Mr. Speaker, in the Māori Party we've talked about cultural competency. We've called for responses which reflect Māori aspirations for education, aspirations which inevitably include the social, political, economic and cultural sustainability of Māori as a people. It's about including Māori culture in meaningful ways. It's about incorporating Māori knowledge, culture and perspectives in and outside of the curriculum. Ultimately, sir, it's about whānau ora. Mr. Speaker, this is fundamentally what Tariana intended would happen with whānau ora, that the education sector would take on the challenge of working with whānau. And while we could easily identify the success factors inherent in kura kaupapa Māori, we must as a nation apply those same conditions for success in the mainstream school system. In my electorate, sir, of Wairiki, for example, Māori children comprise approximately 3/4 of the school roll in the areas of Kawerau and Opotiki. What about them? The thing, sir, is a revolution is not impossible. What the results of Te Kotahitanga show us is that the academic engagement of Māori students dramatically improved. Their completion levels of work increased, there were higher levels of Māori student attendance, and short-term achievement rose. Mr. Speaker, the state, principals, teachers and for their part whānau need to be held to account. Whānau must play their part, but it's also about time the education sector was put on notice too. I mean, they're paid to do the job. 50% plus of Māori boys leaving school without qualifications, sir, is just not good enough. In fact, it's a disgrace. So we have to invest in success. That is the Māori edge that the Māori Party is pursuing. We're determined to make a difference to achieve the change that our nation needs. We will do it not just for the 15,000 Māori children who started school last week, but for the future of all descendants who will carve out a future for Aotearoa. Tēnā tātou.